This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Supporters and family members of two women believed to have been killed by the same man rallied at the legislature today. They're renewing calls for a search of the landfill where police believe the women's remains were dumped. CBC's Cameron McLean brings us the latest.
It's been more than a month since the release of a study on whether a search of the Prairie Green landfill is feasible, but families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are still waiting to hear if a search will be done. Melissa Normand is Harris's cousin.
So what the hell are we waiting for? Someone needs to put the fire underneath our premier's ass to get this ball rolling. I'm tired of it.
That frustration was felt by members of Myron's family as well. Donna Bartlett is her grandmother.
You got to start thinking about us as people, because we are people. So please go get my girl home.
The study concluded a search of the landfill could take up to 3 years and cost $184 million. A spokesperson for Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller says they're still reviewing the results of that study. And a spokesperson for Indigenous Reconciliation Minister Eileen Clark says a meeting has been scheduled with her, Premier Heather Stephenson, Chief Kyra Wilson, and Grand Chief Kathy Merrick for July 5th. But there was no mention of family members of the victims being included in that meeting. Cambria Harris is Morgan Harris's daughter.
You need to acknowledge the families that are hurting instead of watching them behind a TV screen. You need to see them face and face and see the kind of hurt the community is dealing with.
Long Plain Chief Wilson promised to make that happen.
The families will be involved in any meetings when we talk about the landfill search, so if I'm meeting with government, the families will be present.
Police have charged Jeremy Skibicki with killing Harris and Myron, along with two other women. For their families, justice means bringing the remains of their loved ones home. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, it was a big night for the Vegas Golden Knights as they won the Stanley Cup. And even though Vegas was the team that knocked Winnipeg out of the playoffs, last night's victory made a lot of Manitobans happy. CBC's Alana Cole underscores some local connections.
A huge moment for Vegas Golden Knights captain and Winnipeg-born Mark Stone. This, after this, then this, and wait, there's one more. The Knights won the Stanley Cup in Vegas in a 9-3 victory over the Florida Panthers. Stone managing a hat-trick in the deciding win, a first in more than a century.
It's unbelievable. I don't know what to say. It's coming here and city welcoming everybody here and embracing this team.
The Knights snagging this win in its 6th season in the league. And Stone wasn't the only Manitoban playing. Brandon's Keegan Colasar spoke about what this would mean to his late father.
I know he's looking down right now, and he's over the moon happy. And then I see my brother and my sister, and you know, we had a big hug, a little bit of tears. It was awesome.
Zach Whitecloud is from Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, and spoke about his pride in his culture and community.
There's so many people that help all of us get to this point in our lives, right? And, you know, obviously, first and foremost, our parents for the money, the effort, the sacrifices, and the days when they didn't want to take us to the rink. And as you said, my grandma was one of the ones, my auntie taking me to the rink, my dad, and it's unbelievable.
And Brett Howden reflected on the dream he had growing up in Oakbank.
I had a poster in my room. It was a Stanley Cup. It's just a lot of guys don't get to do this, so to be able to be a part of this team and have done it now, just try to cherish every moment.
Howden's dad, down on the ice last night, got to see his son's dedication pay off.
His whole career, I mean, is built around trying to get to this point, and just amazing. Like it has, you know, how things have to work to make that all work and happen. And So yes, as a boy, you always had that dream, and now to live in it, it's pretty unreal.
If fans are wondering when the Stanley Cup might make a trip to Manitoba, those details are yet to come. But it looks like it could be a tour. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's largest public sector union wants the government to catch up and keep up. A new report released today by the Manitoba Government and General Employees Union shows a reduction of 2,300 jobs for Manitoba's civil servants since 2016, the year the PCs were first elected. Vacancy rates in many departments hover near 30%. MGEU President Kyle Ross says workers are suffering, and so are Manitobans who can't get timely services.
We're not an employer of choice anymore. They're struggling to recruit and retain, and our people are suffering. The people look around them, and there's desks empty everywhere, and they want to do a good job. These people want to serve Manitobans, and Manitobans are seeing this, and they're coming to many places saying, we're not getting the service we expect.
To try and address those concerns, the report calls on the provincial government to boost wages and consult staff before making any major workplace changes. We are still at least a week away from learning whether Manitoba will approve a plan to drill thousands of wells east of Winnipeg to mine silica sand. In the meantime, the RM of Springfield has some decisions of its own to make about the controversial proposal. As the CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, police had to be called to a council meeting last night.
Whatever the hell they want with me, they can hang me for all I care. I am going to fight this to the end, till the day I die.
This was the scene on Tuesday night in Oakbank, where the arm of Springfield was supposed to consider land use changes to make way for a sand processing facility. It would be built on this plot of land, south of Vivian, Manitoba. Sand from up to 7,000 wells could be cleaned here. The last Springfield Council voted against allowing the facility, but the municipal board, an appointed provincial body, ordered Springfield to change bylaws and come up with a development agreement.
You came to my house, asked for my support. Exactly.
When Springfield Council met to vote on those changes, residents were angry they wouldn't have any input.
There's nothing in your procedures manual that says you cannot take questions from the floor.
Mayor Patrick Therrien said they took over the meeting, so council shut it down.
We're talking about a minority of people that were just totally disruptive, and one individual was disruptive enough that we elected that he would be removed. Closed the hearing down until the police would attend to remove this individual.
RCMPs say nobody was ticketed or charged. Springfield's now figuring out what to do next. Tangi Bell, who leads a group opposed to mining for sand, says Springfield was breaking its own rules.
They're not following the proper procedure, and it was symbolic of that. There was calamity. They couldn't control the people. The people were asking relevant questions, and council refused to answer.
Bell says there has to be citizen input into any new bylaw. The mayor says the RM's hands are tied by the order from the municipal board. Springfield Municipal Council does not have the final say as to whether the silica mining goes ahead. That's up to the province. The Clean Environment Commission has to issue a recommendation, yay or nay, by June 22nd. The provincial environment minister has the final say. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Oakbank, Manitoba.
We're still days from the Winnipeg South Centre by-election, but already it's made Canadian history. More names are on its ballot than for any federal election ever. A record-setting 48 individuals are running for office, 42 of whom are part of a group, a coordinated effort calling itself the Longest Ballot Committee. They're protesting the first-past-the-post voting system. Dennis Pilon is an associate professor in the Department of Politics at York University. Sir, you study elections and voting systems. A lot of people are saying that this protest is inappropriate. What do you have to say to that?
I would say those people don't know very much about how democracy changes, because just about every major reform we've seen, every time we've included some new people in the political system, it has involved people acting out in this kind of way.
Do you believe our political system needs to change?
Absolutely. I think that the current system is not doing the job that Canadians need it to do. It's not delivering the goods.
What do you mean delivering the goods? What are the goods?
The goods are the votes, and the votes are an indication of the kind of representation that Canadians would like to see. We know what Canadians vote for. They tend to vote for political parties, and those parties are differentiated by the kinds of things that they offer the public. That's the most important information, and that's what our political system, our electoral system, should be representing. The current system fails at the first hurdle. It doesn't manage to reflect the diversity of opinions that are out there, and it doesn't reflect them accurately. And so that creates a lot of problems, a lot of frustration for Canadian voters.
We were speaking earlier, and you were saying that any of the new democracies set up in recent decades, they would never have the system we have. Tell me more about that.
Well, basically, whenever a group is starting from scratch, no one ever chooses the system of voting that we use. Nobody chooses it. This system is a system that is kept in place when democracy is doled out in bits and pieces. You know, when you have a system that's fundamentally undemocratic, like the Canadian system was when it was set up, then as more people are invited or allowed to participate, the rules of the game aren't renegotiated. But wherever you have a situation where, you know, everything's flat and everybody comes in with the same degree of power, nobody says they want the system that we have. So here we're talking about the Southern European countries that democratized in the 70s, the post-communist countries. Not a single one chose our voting system. So I think that tells you something important about its democratic potential.
What do you think we need to do to make our system better?
I think that any proportional voting system would be a dramatic advance on what we're doing, for the most basic reason that it would represent what Canadians say with their votes, and it would create a more competitive dynamic. So that parties wouldn't have these sort of fiefdoms across the country where they can always count on winning all the seats. That's not very democratic. We'd stop this process of isolating different groups of voters. You know, the West is all for the right, and Ontario's all for the Liberals, and that's not true, actually. When we look at the actual votes, we discover that, you know, the West is quite diverse. There's lots of opinions in the West, even though they don't necessarily all get represented. And the same for Central Canada. So we would end up with a system that is just much better at representing our diversity, not just across the country, but within the regions of the country itself.
Dennis Pilon from the Department of Politics at York University, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Bell Media says it's closing or selling 9 of its radio stations across the country, including Funny 1290 here in Winnipeg. CTV's foreign bureaus in London and in Los Angeles are also set to close, and its operations in Washington will be scaled back. BCE Inc. says it will be cutting 1,300 positions across the country. It says around 30% of the positions being eliminated are current vacancies, which will not be filled. Bell says the job cuts are in response to what it describes as unfavorable public policy and regulatory conditions. The company says its media plan involves, quote, moving to a single newsroom approach across brands, allowing for greater collaboration and efficiency between radio and TV, for example. Meteorologist John Sauder joins us now. Boy, in terms of cooperation, the temperature did not cooperate today. It was cold this morning.
It was chilly. The best we did this afternoon was 18 in Winnipeg. Has a lot to do with the smoke, and I know it's not as hazy as it was at this time yesterday. The smoke is still there. It's just not at the surface. It's a little higher up, so we no longer have that special air quality statement in effect. And you look at the air quality index rating, and here it is. Yesterday at this time, it was a 5, which is a moderate risk, and now this is forecast for tomorrow, a 3, and that is a low risk. So, yeah, temperature still at only 18 degrees. It's been stuck there for about 4 hours now. Northeast winds at 19, and the dew point is low, so it's cool and it's dry. Last week at this time, it was hot and humid. We didn't see much in the way of cloud cover at all today, but I do think this is probably some of the smoke that's being picked up on infrared satellite with a little bit of cloud in the far north. Otherwise, a sunny, hazy sky for us. There will be some changes on the way. I'm expecting one more day with the smoky haze that I do think will be aloft as opposed to on the surface. It's a lot better for breathing. And then we're looking at, On Thursday, a system rolling in from the west, and it's really a bit of a cold front, I guess you would say, but even off the get-go in the morning, some showers around Dauphin and Swan River. Afternoon, we could see some showers around the Brandon area as well, and a risk of a thunderstorm, slight risk, and then later on in the overnight period and even on in toward Friday morning, we've got this line of cloud right through the Red River Valley, and it is going to give us a few showers, and then on into the morning as well. We have this area of rain moving up from the south. So there's Friday at 8:30. And then Friday at 4 o'clock, where we start to see this moving off into the White Shell and northwestern Ontario, and then through Kenora later on in the evening. And then what follows in behind, now this is very early on Saturday morning, but more sunshine on Saturday. So we stay with the hazy sky or local smoke tonight, a low of 12. That's right around seasonal, 14 in the morning, and then 26 in the afternoon. But like I said yesterday, it depends on how thick the smoke is, and it could make a big difference in our temperature. We'll wait and see. But that's the target, 26 for tomorrow. And then on Friday, slightly cooler at 22, a lot more cloud around, occasional showers. And then Saturday is sunny at 27. Another little system rolls through Saturday night, could give us a few showers again while we're sleeping, Janet, on Saturday night into Sunday morning. But 27 Saturday and 29 once again Sunday, even warmer for next week, and that's coming up in the 7-day forecast.
Thanks very much, John. We look forward to that. Well, you don't look forward to these things at all. If you're a bird, you might. They're creepy and they're crawly, and Winnipeggers are finding them all over the city, hanging from trees, covering picnic benches, sometimes even having fallen on your head, which is just terrible. Cankerworms are back, leaving people dodging webs and cleaning up a mess. CBC's Emily Brass joins us now live from River Heights. So, Emily, how are the worms out there?
Well, Janet, we've already had some run-ins. You know, as you know, the cankerworms come down. You often don't see them until you're already walking right into them, and they've been in our hair already. You can just capture them all over the place, and they're dangling on these silky thin threads from the tops of the trees. And up there, if you look up, you can see there's not a lot of leaves on those branches, and the ones that are there are looking pretty brown. So joining us now to explain what's going on is entomologist Taz Stewart. Taz, what's going on with those branches?
Well, there's a little friend. This one's hanging just behind you right there, and there's a good shot. You bring it up close, and yes, they're ones eating your leaves or putting all the webbing down. And when you're riding your bike down the street or down the sidewalk, yeah, they're hanging in you. This is the growth time. This is when they're the biggest. They're going into the ground to pupate and then come out next year in the spring. And there's two different species. There's a spring cankerworm and a fall cankerworm.
And so the spring ones are coming to the end of their cycle?
Both of them at the same time. This is how it works. So one will sit in the ground, and then the adults will come out in the fall, and that's why it's important to get your tree banded in September and then re-sticky it up in the spring. So it's important. That's how you get the female, who's a wingless moth that crawls up there, gets stuck, and they won't lay the eggs in the canopy.
Okay, let's take a little walk this way too, because you can see more effects of the cankerworms by looking at this car that's been parked over here a while.
It's in the ground shows you all the fecal matter as well, and this is the fun part.
Is that what that is? Okay, so you can see all the brown debris around. You can see it's looking all sticky on top of the car. What is all of that, Taz?
Oh, it's called a mess, and this person's car is not going to be happy. It needs to be cleaned, and the thing is, nice warm water, soap water will take it off, but that's cankerworm poop. 100%.
So what can you do to prevent, you mentioned banding trees, but things like your property from getting covered like that?
And this is where, with these trees being so big, these are like over 30 feet, you're going to need to bring in a professional tree spraying company. BTK is the product you want to use, and that will they'll ingest it, the larvae will die. But again, whoops, there it goes. Want it?
No. I think you could keep them. So how bad has this cankerworm season been compared to other years?
It depends on the area you live in. Right now we're in River Heights here, and some of the areas there's hot spots, and you're seeing the damage, the webbing, the poop. It's great. It's a disgusting little time, but it's almost over.
And so once it's over, what other insects can we expect to make an appearance?
Well, I hate to say it, elm spamworm is having its fun too. That's the one that leaves the lovely leaves, the veins of the leaves. It's chewing as well. There's a little bit of forest tent caterpillar out there too. So hey, it's wormy time.
And then how about the mosquitoes? How do you expect them to be this year?
Well, we will see some, and of course, that's just normal. It's Winnipeg. So.
Not much you can do about them.
Oh, no, God, no. Yes, dump it, drain it, fill it, cover it, treat it. That's what you want to do, because those mosquitoes in your backyard are going to be feeding on you. So it's very important to be there treating it. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, yep. Getting rid of the standing water.
Yes, standing water is not your friend.
Okay, thank you so much, Taz.
Thank you.
That's Taz Stewart. He's an entomologist. And Janet, I think I'm going to go try to pick some of these threads and worms out of my hair and clothing. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Emily Brass, reporting live tonight. You know, she's got me feeling like I've got cankerworms on me too, and I'm indoors. It's just the suggestion, isn't it? Whew. Now, almost 4 years ago, CBC Manitoba sat down with Jason Walmsley to tell a really memorable story. At the time, he was inside Headingley Correctional Centre, and he was telling us about his struggles with addiction. He managed to stay sober for 1,325 days. But sadly, then he relapsed and again committed crimes. He's now in Stony Mountain Federal Penitentiary, where once again, he shared the latest in his struggle with substance abuse disorder with CBC. Marcy Marcusa started their conversation by asking him about the day he relapsed.
I had to message the guy, I had to explain who I was, I had to go into the vehicle, I had to drive to get money, I had to drive to his place I'd never been before, I had to meet him, I had to buy it, I had to give him the money, I had to get back in the car, I had to drive home. And at any point in time during that hour or hour and a half, I could have decided not to do it. I had to make about 500 conscious decisions to do it. And I can only, it's hard for me to look back and think of my state of mind at the time, but it was almost one of, and this is going to sound weird, it's almost one of elation. Like, this isn't just this isn't a relapse, it's a celebration. You know, it's I can use it and I can be okay, even though I bloody well know I'm not, and I can't, and I won't.
You use the word elation?
Yeah, well, elation in the sense of, because I can never look at my life a day or a month or a week in advance. I look at my life as the next 45 years, which is just a really long time, you know, and it's almost overwhelming to me. And I'll be very honest, you know, I get to points in my life where I'm not using, I am sober, I'm doing well, and I just dread those next 45 years. Or 50 years, or 20 years, or however long it's going to be. Probably a really long time, because that's how it works. But I dread it.
How soon did you realize that that there was no going back, that you were in it?
When I relapse, it is my sole purpose. There is no in between. There's no going to work or using in moderation. It is full on, every day, all day. Every waking moment is desperate for it, or desperate trying to figure out how to get it, or waiting for it, or everything in my life becomes desperate at that point.
And is there a decision point to commit a crime then, or is that then just part of the desperation wheel?
The crime, well, for me, the crime kind of serves two different purposes. It's not only a way to continue using, but it's also a way to end using. Because I know, like when I committed my crimes, they're nothing new. It's the same thing I've done for 10 years, and I don't do it in a way that tries to conceal it. I don't wear gloves. I don't, you know, try to hide anything. I commit the crime in desperation, and then I retreat back to my, you know, my dungeon, as I called it, my apartment, and pretty much wait for the cops to show up to stop the cycle for me.
How did it feel when police showed up at your door?
Yeah, they said if I didn't open it, they'd knock it down, so I opened it. One of the officers in the hallway, because I believe there were 6 officers to arrest me. There were 2 in the hallway with their guns drawn, and I said, why so many? And I remember him saying, well, we were told to come along that if you started shooting, we're to shoot back. And I thought to myself, that's where I've gotten myself to, is you know, armed policemen with their guns drawn to knock on my door. That's where I've taken this, you know. What was I thinking? I was I was thankful it was over. I was thankful that the using was over. I had used maybe an hour before they showed up. And
did you have a gun? Could you have
oh
shot
goodness,
back?
no.
Did you want to get busted?
It was relief, because not only now do I get another chance to get sober, I get another chance to earn that trust back again, I hope, but I get another chance.
And you're hopeful that might be?
I'm hopeful, but I've done that before. And I did very well, but I went back again. And then I did very well, and then I went back again. And now I'm doing very well. And I can't help but think, what if I go back again? I don't want to go back again. Like, what if I go back again? I'm going to do all this again and just, I'm so sick of it, you know? Everybody sees an addict and they think that they want this kind of life, and it's just not how it is. I don't want to disappoint my family after I've made them so proud. I don't want to let down my nieces when we have such a close relationship. I don't want to walk back into a place like this and have officers look at me and I know they're disappointed because they thought he's going to be the one that makes it. He's going to be okay. Now I'm just the one that came back again, and I'm grateful to be back here because it means I'm alive and it means I get that chance again, you know? But I can't keep doing this. So I know that this is that pivotal point. I go one way or I go the other, and it is so much pressure. I want it to be a simple choice where it's just, I'm gonna go the right way and I'm gonna do well. But I know from past experience that I've wanted it before. I've wanted it so bad, and I've gone the other way. How is that not terrifying? And I mean terrifying.
After the break, we're going to bring you this story. Canada's public safety minister facing calls to step down after serial killer Paul Bernardo was transferred to a lower security prison. He says he didn't know about it, and yet his staff did. We'll bring you the latest after the break.
Moved out of a maximum security penitentiary to enjoy more luxuries and more freedom.
Amid public scrutiny, Canada's public safety minister said he'll issue a new directive, one that says he must be directly notified about high-profile prisoner transfers to lower security prisons. This comes a day after CBC News revealed that the minister's staff knew about Paul Bernardo's transfer 3 months before it happened. But they say they didn't tell the minister until after the transfer. Ashley Burke broke that story, and now she brings us the latest from Parliament Hill.
The public safety minister in the official opposition's crosshairs.
He lies and lies and lies and lies.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says the minister has to go.
It is time for Marco Mendicino to resign.
It comes after CBC News revealed Mendicino's office knew 3 months in advance that serial killer Paul Bernardo would be transferred from a maximum to medium security facility. But the office said it didn't share that news with the minister until after the transfer happened.
It is something that obviously we're taking seriously.
The minister today admitted his political staff mishandled it.
I have also made it clear to my staff that this should have been briefed immediately. Corrective steps have been taken. I have dealt with it.
He expects us to believe that his staff just forgot to walk down the hall and inform him that perhaps the most notorious killer in Canadian history was being moved out of a maximum security penitentiary to enjoy more luxuries and more freedom.
Mendicino promised change, saying he's issuing a ministerial directive that he must directly be notified in advance of all high-profile transfers and that the victims should be too.
To make sure that they put victims' rights at the center of decisions to transfer, that they inform victims' families before those transfers take place.
But the victims' families say they feel let down.
There seems to be a rather cavalier attitude about something so serious, and that makes them feel vulnerable and disrespected.
The opposition says it's part of a larger problem.
This government has a real bad habit of saying, I didn't know. They know so little. What the hell are they doing there?
The Conservatives say Mendicino should step down, and if he doesn't, that the Prime Minister needs to fire him. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
A reprieve today for some individuals who claim they were victims of a fraudulent immigration scheme. Several dozen people were faced with being deported from Canada after it was discovered some of their school documents were fake. Today, Canada agreed to let them stay while a committee reviews their cases. Chris O'Neill-Yates has more.
On day 17 of camping out in front of the Canada Border Services Agency, rain or shine, this group of students from India is relieved that they could be allowed to stay in Canada.
They will look closely to each and every file, and definitely there is a relief for the students, those who came here to study and their intentions are so clear to study. So this is a good thing.
Today, the immigration minister announced a task force to look into each case. Students who can show they didn't know their acceptance records were fake won't be sent home.
Those international students who are genuine applicants that came to Canada to study and were victimized by fraudsters will be given permission to remain in Canada.
Students say they hired consultants back home in India who provided college admission letters to get a student visa. But when they reached Canada, the consultant then told them that they could no longer attend the college that had accepted them. So they changed schools and got their degrees, started working and building lives here. But when they applied for permanent residency, they learned that their college acceptance letters were fake.
It's been reported that there are 700. Our numbers are significantly lower than that at present. There are a few dozen people.
The students will be granted an 8-week temporary residence permit and be allowed to work while the task force reviews their cases. If they were defrauded, that permit will be extended for 3 years. During that period, they can apply to become permanent residents. Harjit Sidhu has been in Canada for 6 years and desperately wants to stay.
We are honest, we are innocent, so that's give us a power to come front of everybody and deal with this situation. As we say from the first day, we are victim, we are innocent, we are not culprits.
Today's measures are a good start, according to this immigration lawyer.
So I'll be looking to see if there's
clarity and fairness in the interplay between what he's proposed today and how that ends up impacting the permanent residence process.
Now those who say they were innocent victims of fraudulent consultants back home will get the opportunity to make their case. And they're warning others to be careful too. Chris O'Neill-Yates, CBC News, Toronto.
At least 79 people are dead after a crowded boat of migrants sank yesterday off the coast of Greece. Rescue efforts continue as crews search for hundreds of others in the deadliest such incident this year. The fishing trawler was packed with migrants and refugees heading from Libya to Italy. Emergency crews pulled dozens of people from the water. There's no clear record, but officials suspect there may have been as many as 600 people on board, far beyond the capacity of the boat. UN figures show 70,000 refugees have traveled this route since January, most coming from Africa and the Middle East, trying to get to Europe. Coming up, this unprecedented wildfire season has some experts worried about what's to come and if Canada's fleet of aging water bombers are ready for it. That story after the break. The unprecedented wildfire season we're having this year has greatly tested Canada's firefighting resources. And if what's happened so far is a warning about what's to come, experts say the country's fleet of water bombers is not ready for that. As Jayla Bernstein reports, they say more planes are needed and fast.
The fires came within a couple kilometers of this remote hamlet in northern Quebec. A lucky change in the wind spared Clova. He says more water bombers could have controlled the flames sooner, but the province had more fires than planes. It was forced to leave the firefighting to ground crews. Just one example of how the worst wildfire season of the century has tested Canadian resources.
I would suggest that this is a taste of the future. What's the worst that could possibly happen? Well, double it, because that's what's happening.
CBC News reached out to every province and territory to get a tally of Canada's water bombers. Its core fleet is about 100 dispatch-ready planes, all government-owned or contracted long-term and shared as needed. But experts say this arrangement doesn't work so well when fires rage from coast to coast.
When you've got fire of this scale, there definitely isn't enough.
Plus, the fleet is aging. Some Canadair water bombers are 40 or 50 years old.
These older airplanes need a lot of TLC, and they need a lot of work and a lot of maintenance, and they're much more expensive to fly and maintain.
He says even with regular maintenance and refurbishing, the fleet needs upgrading.
If this is going to become the new normal, we have to rethink the Canadian firefighting fleet.
One answer could be the next generation of Canadairs. De Havilland says they'll roll out from a new plant in Calgary starting in 2027. But the first 24 are promised to Europe. And so far, no orders from Canada.
We'll learn from our experience in here and when we make future investments to make sure that Canada has the capacity to respond.
For now, U.S. planes are swooping into the rescue. But the changing climate means that future wildfire seasons are more likely to strike both countries at once. All the more reason for Canada to start thinking about becoming more self-reliant. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us on a middle of the week day, but you know, you dream about spending time relaxing, don't you?
Yeah. You know, and I was just thinking about to that last story and about the fires, and it sort of reminds us of the smoke that's here today and kind of hazy conditions, but still going to be a pretty nice day in the backyard tomorrow. This is your backyard forecast for Winnipeg for Thursday afternoon. Mainly sunny, yes, hazy. And a high of 26, but you know, we'll hope for that 26 depending on how much smoke is around. Look at the temperatures today, and the forecast high was 25 in Winnipeg, and we only got to 18, and that's where we're sitting right now. It's 19 at the Forks and in Steinbach. You'll see all kinds of different numbers here. 21 down the road in Morris, also in Emerson, but 28 in Melita. Just 19 in Dauphin. Big difference there. 21 right now in Brandon, and mid-teens out into northwestern Ontario and right across the north. Anywhere from 13 to, say, 17 degrees right now across northern Manitoba. So forecast conditions, well, I've drawn in a little bit of a haze here for you so you get the idea. This will continue in northwestern Ontario, where we still have that special air quality statement in effect. Lows anywhere from 6 to 10 degrees, the 10 being in Kenora. Here in the southeast, not much cloud around, but still kind of hazy overnight. 12 in Winnipeg, single-digit lows out to the south and east of us. And then out into the west, we're looking at lows around 11 in Brandon, up through into Swan River, 9s in Portage and Morden, Winkler and Carman, and then off into the north. The lows are, well, generally single digits with the exception of Flin Flon and the Paw. Now tomorrow, nice recovery. Pretty seasonal temperatures, 21 to 23 in the west. Sunshine in Norway House and Thompson at 23 degrees. And we'll have a sun cloud mix in Churchill, a high of 18, but southeast winds gusting to 50, and lots of sunshine out to the east and low 20s as well. Southern Manitoba now, the southwest, well, this is that frontal system I was talking about. Afternoon showers for Swan River and Dauphin. Could see some of that as a thunderstorm around Brandon and areas to the west. The rest of us have a sunny day until we get into the evening hours, and that's when we'll start to see really the overnight period here in the Red River Valley, and then on into Friday morning farther to the east. But generally the day will be sunny, hazy, and then out into northwestern Ontario, I hear that I have a fan in Fort Frances named Jazz, and I just wanted to say hi to Jazz. But 22 degrees in Fort Frances tomorrow and 23 tomorrow in Kenora. But again, Janet, it'll be kind of smoky and hazy.
Oh, well, thank you, John, and hello, Jazz. A Manitoba mother wants a new police unit created to look into cases like the death of her daughter, whose body was found on a golf course near the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. We'll bring you the latest in our Mother, Sister, Daughter series next. CBC Manitoba has been looking into what kind of progress has been made after the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls issued its report calling for change 4 years ago. In that report, it called for changes to police services, which include creating specialized Indigenous units to oversee cases involving women, girls, LGBTQ, and Two-Spirit people. None of those 11 calls have been started.
My name is Val Charlotte, and I'm from the Matthias Colomb Cree Nation. I'm the mother of Tristan Ravendrobe, and she belongs to her father's band, the Peter Ballantyne Band. This is it's like a little sacred bundle for her, for me, for us here. And it has the 4 medicines tied to each of the corners. And what this is doing is helping me get through this. My daughter, Rainbow Child, Tristan Raven-Job, she was a beautiful spirit. She was a surprise. I didn't think that I could have children, and lo and behold, I was so excited and happy. The ancestors gave the name Rainbow Child. And so that's why she has that name. I got a phone call. I received a lot of messages. So I answered my daughter's many Facebook messages, and she said that Tristan's gone. And it's like I went off somewhere. I didn't know, I didn't believe. And I went home and I called the RCMP and to ask them what was going on. They informed me that my daughter had passed and that she's at the morgue in Flin Flon, and that she was found deceased at the Creighton Phantom Lake golf course. And still, I'm not believing. And I had the hope. I still had hope right up until they finally let me into the morgue to see my daughter. She didn't look good. She had a large vein that was popped out in her neck. And I thought, okay, she was choked. She was murdered. And the coroner was kind of drawing his own conclusions, that he was describing that maybe she fell, that she fell in between some boards. Why would my daughter wander to the middle of a golf course to go die by herself? It doesn't make sense. But that is what the RCMP want me to believe. And I don't. Justice would look like a task force, especially assigned to cases like my daughter's, because she's not the only one. A task force that could be mobilized when an Indigenous person passes. So this task force, I could see them coming in, and they comprise of professionals that know how to look at a scene, that have Indigenous people as well part of it, our elders that carry their sacred bundles to be a part of it, that can see things that we can't really see. Because that's where my daughter is. She's there with all things. She was there at the sacred fire every night.
We'll be right back.
So another fairly warm day tomorrow. Normal high is now 24. We should be at a hazy 26 tomorrow afternoon. Slightly cooler after some showers overnight Thursday into Friday, and then warmer on the weekend. And we could see some showers Saturday night into Sunday. But look at next week's temperatures. Back in the 30s and a chance for some late day storms on Wednesday. Now this is interesting. Photos of mermen.
Mermen.
That's the men version of mermaids.
Yes.
Have been washing up online in Manitoba. First Nation men have started posing as Ariel, wearing bras and using sheets as fins.
You know Ariel, right?
Yeah.
They've been inspired by Disney's recent remake of The Little Mermaid, Ariel. Since then, more than a dozen other communities have joined this trend. Here, my friends, is your Daily Lift.
Living in an isolated community is just a different experience of life, what most people never get to have. So with masculinity, you know, we all have our struggles, but we also find humor in our hearts to help us face those struggles. With social media, it has allowed us to connect with each other in so many ways, like this being gone viral and everything, where all the First Nations have decided to post their own picture. And, you know, it's not always negative. So what I hope everyone gains from this is that humor is our natural medicine. And I've seen social media posts that have lifted people's spirits and helped them forget their troubles. And if for that 1 second it makes them smile, humor has done its job. And I know it's a silly thing for some people, but actually I feel honored to be given that opportunity to make people laugh. Every response was positive. They're like, oh, look, there's the famous merman guy.
I think that's just wonderful what they're doing.
It's great, you know,
So
making
great.
people laugh and smile.
Absolutely, there's nothing wrong with that. You never know when a smile or a kind word is just going to hit somebody on the right day, you know? Make
And you know
everything
what? You're going away for a little while. You're taking a few days off.
I'm taking a few weeks off.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed and so lucky, but I don't want you to worry. I am coming back.
Yes.
So don't panic.
In the meantime, we'll miss you.
Well, thank you. I'll miss you too, but
Vacation.
I'm coming back. Take care of yourselves, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.